Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive,
Mhm.
into how to really level up your English listening and speaking skills.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at 10 tips
Okay.
that we've gotten from a bunch of sources and kind of digesting them,
Yeah.
and talking about how
Mm,
people can, anyone listening can actually use these tips to improve their English.
absolutely. And I think it's something that a lot of people are looking to do, in today's world.
Yeah.
It's so important to be able to communicate effectively in English.
Yeah, it can open up a world of opportunities, right?
Exactly.
Um, so, we're excited to share these tips with you guys, and hopefully you'll find them really useful.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I see a lot is people get really caught up in the grammar rules and things like that when
All right.
really the key is just consistent exposure and practice. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You think about it like learning to ride a bike, you wouldn't just read the manual.
Right.
You'd actually hop on and start pedaling.
Exactly. So
Okay.
so that kind of leads us to our first tip, which is all about immersion.
Okay.
Surrounding yourself with English as much as possible. Now, I get it, studying grammar is important,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
think about adding things like watching movies, listening to podcasts, or even just changing your phone settings
Right.
to English.
Yeah.
These small changes can actually make a big difference.
Absolutely. And, it's like you're creating this constant background hum of English
Right.
in your life, even passive listening. Like having English music playing while you work
Yeah.
allows your brain to just subconsciously pick up on those patterns and rhythms.
Right.
So, over time, you find yourself understanding more and more without even really realizing it.
Yeah, so it's not about hitting a specific number of hours,
Right.
but rather just weaving English into your everyday routine.
Exactly.
I think that's really important for people to remember
Yeah.
because it can be easy to get intimidated, thinking, oh my gosh, I need to, set aside 2 hours every day to study.
Right, right. You want to make it enjoyable and sustainable.
Yeah.
So start with things that you already love doing,
Yeah.
but explore the English versions. If you love cooking shows, find some with English speaking chefs.
Mm-hmm.
Love true crime podcasts. Well, there's a whole world of those out there
Exactly.
in English. So just find a way to make it fun and engaging for yourself.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
So once we're immersed, we're surrounding ourselves with English,
Right.
then the next step is active listening,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
this is where we go beyond just hearing the words, and we
Mm.
really focus on understanding, the meaning, the context,
Mm-hmm.
and even the emotions behind them.
Uh-huh.
So what are some ways that we can kind of actively engage with what we're hearing?
Well, one technique that's often recommended is summarizing what you've heard,
Sure.
almost like you're explaining it to someone else.
Okay.
This forces you to process the information, identify the key points, and put it into your own words. You can also try, mentally rephrasing what the speaker is saying, or even jotting down key points if it's, like a lecture or something.
I love that idea of summarizing because it's almost like a built-in comprehension check.
Exactly.
It forces you to really engage with the material.
Yeah. And if you're listening to something live, like a conversation
Okay.
or a Q&A session, don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions.
Right.
That not only ensures that you understand what's being said,
Hmm.
but it also shows the speaker that you're truly interested and engaged.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it sounds like active listening is all about, being present in the moment and truly absorbing the information.
Right.
Um, but how do we make sure that we're, retaining what we've learned?
Well, that's where practice comes in. And this leads us to our next tip, which is a technique that's both fun and effective.
Oak.
Shadowing.
Shadowing.
Have you ever, found yourself mimicking your favorite lines from a movie?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
That's essentially what shadowing is.
I never really thought about it as a language learning technique.
Right.
But yeah, I do that all the time.
So tell me more about how shadowing works and why it's so beneficial.
Well, it's all about mimicking the rhythm intonation
Okay.
and even the emotion of the speaker. Think of it like a workout for your vocal muscles.
Mm-hmm.
By repeating phrases and sentences exactly as you hear them,
Okay.
you're training your mouth to produce those sounds naturally and confidently.
So it's more than just pronunciation. It's about like internalizing the nuances of spoken English.
Yeah.
It's like you're stepping into the shoes of a native speaker.
Yeah, exactly. And the beauty of shadowing is that it can be adapted to your specific goals.
Right.
If you're working on mastering a specific accent,
Mm-hmm.
choose content featuring speakers with that accent.
Yeah.
If you want to improve your presentation skills, shadow speeches and presentations.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of different ways you can use it. So we've covered immersion, active listening, and now shadowing. These all sound like great ways to practice on your own.
Right.
But what about interacting with others in English?
Well, that's where our next tip comes in joining conversation groups.
Okay.
Um, it can be a bit daunting at first to speak English in front of others, but conversation groups offer this really safe and supportive space to practice what you've learned.
Right. So it's like a training ground for real-world conversations.
Exactly. You'll be able to experiment with different phrases, get feedback on your pronunciation, and learn from other learners' experiences. And the best part is, there are groups for all levels, from beginners to advanced speakers.
Right.
So you can find a group that's right for you.
Are these groups mostly in person, or are there online options as well?
There are both in-person groups, obviously offer that benefit of that face-to-face interaction.
Right.
Which can be really helpful for picking up on those nonverbal cues and building confidence in social settings.
Sure.
But online groups offer flexibility and convenience, especially if you're short on time or, live in an area where in-person groups are limited.
Right. I love that there's so many options available. It seems like there's really something for everyone now. Before we move on, I do want to touch on something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
That feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yes.
We've covered a lot of ground already, and we're only on tip number 4.
Right.
So how can our listener approach all of this without feeling completely lost?
That's a great question. And it's important to remember you don't need to implement all of these tips at once.
Okay.
Start with 1 or 2 that resonate with you and build from there.
Right.
The goal is to create a personalized learning routine that fits your lifestyle and your learning style. And you can always add more tips as you gain confidence and experience.
That's reassuring. So instead of trying to do everything at once, it's better to start small and build momentum.
Exactly. It's like building a house. You wouldn't try to build the entire structure in a day.
Right.
You start with the foundation and gradually add the walls, the roof, and all the finishing touches. Language learning is the same way.
So let's dive into our next tip, which seems to be all about leveraging the power of technology.
Okay.
Language learning apps.
Yeah.
These apps like Duolingo make learning fun and engaging by turning it into a game. So what are your thoughts on using these apps as part of a language learning routine?
Well, I think they can be incredibly valuable tools, especially for reinforcing vocabulary and grammar.
Right.
They offer interactive exercises, personalized feedback, and even opportunities to connect with native speakers for practice.
Yeah.
Plus, their gamified approach can really help keep you motivated and engaged,
Right.
even when you're feeling tired or busy.
I think that's a huge benefit for a lot of people because it's so easy to get bogged down with traditional textbooks and exercises.
Yeah.
But when learning feels like a game, you're more likely to stick with it. So what are some other ways that these apps can enhance the learning process?
Well, many apps incorporate features like spaced repetition, which is a technique that helps you learn and retain information more effectively. They also often offer progress tracking, so you can see how far you've come and celebrate your achievements.
Right.
And some even provide cultural insights,
Oh, wow.
helping you gain a deeper understanding of the language and its nuances.
It's amazing how technology can be harnessed to make learning more accessible and enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll dive deeper into the remaining tips and how to put them all together in part 2.
Okay.
But for now, let's take a quick pause. What are your thoughts on the tips we've covered so far?
Yeah.
Which one resonates most with you?
And
we are back for part 2 of our deep dive on really making your English listening and speaking skills top-notch.
It's been a great discussion so far.
It has, and we still got so much to go over.
I know. I'm excited for these next few tips.
Me too.
Me too. Especially, I think one that a lot of people might find a little daunting, but I think is really powerful. Okay. Recording yourself speaking English.
I can see how that would be a little awkward at first, but I can also see the value in it.
Yeah.
It's like having a mirror reflecting back not just your image, but your spoken words.
Exactly. It allows you to become so much more aware of your pronunciation, your intonation, even those sneaky grammar slip-ups that, you might not catch otherwise.
Right.
You might realize, oh, I'm speaking way too quickly, or I'm mumbling certain words, or I'm using, incorrect grammar structure.
So it's like having your own personal language coach tucked away in your pocket.
Exactly.
Offering instant feedback and highlighting those areas for improvement.
And the beauty of it is as you continue to record yourself over time, you can really track your progress
Right.
and celebrate those victories.
Yeah.
Hear yourself speaking English more flippantly, more confidently.
It's all about turning those self-criticisms into stepping stones for improvement.
Exactly.
Speaking of noticing areas for improvement, our next tip takes us into the realm of pronunciation and intonation,
Yes.
which can be a real game changer when it comes to, sounding more natural and fluent.
Absolutely. Think of it like, adding the finishing touches to a masterpiece.
Okay.
You've got the basic structure and content, but now it's time to refine those details and really make it shine.
I love that analogy. So when we're focusing on pronunciation and intonation,
Mm-hmm.
what are some key things that we should be paying attention to?
Well, first and foremost, pay attention to individual sounds.
Okay.
English has some tricky sounds that might not exist in your native language.
Right.
So it's really important to, practice those diligently.
Mm-hmm.
Things like online dictionaries that have audio pronunciations or
Yeah.
pronunciation guides can be really helpful.
And don't forget those trusty tongue twisters.
Oh, yes.
They're not just for kids.
They're great.
They're a fantastic way to exercise those mouth muscles and improve articulation.
Yeah, tongue twisters are like mini workouts for your tongue and lips,
Yeah.
helping you produce those sounds more clearly, more confidently.
So once you've got a handle on individual sounds,
Right.
then you can shift your focus to intonation,
Yes.
which is all about the melody of your speech, the rise and fall of your voice. That conveys meaning and emotion.
I've definitely noticed that a flat intonation can make someone sound robotic or disinterested, even if their grammar is perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Expressive intonation is what breathes life into language.
Exactly. And think about how you use intonation in your native language, to convey sarcasm or excitement or even a simple question. Those same principles apply in English.
Yeah.
So mastering intonation is really crucial for sounding more natural and engaging.
So how can we practice intonation effectively?
Well, one of the most effective techniques is to listen to native speakers and try to mimic their intonation patterns. Pay attention to, how their voices rise and fall, where they place emphasis, how they use pauses for effect.
I've definitely found that imitating native speakers can be incredibly helpful. And don't be afraid to exaggerate a bit at first.
Yes.
It's like learning a new dance move.
Yes.
It might feel awkward initially, but with practice, it becomes more natural and fluid.
Absolutely.
Our next tip takes us from practicing alone to interacting with others.
Okay.
The exciting world of role-playing.
Oh, yes.
It's all about stepping out of our comfort zones and putting those language skills to the test in simulated real-life situations.
Right. It's like a dress rehearsal
Yeah.
for real-life conversations.
I can see how this would be a great way to build confidence and fluency,
Uh-huh.
especially because it's a low-stakes environment
Yes.
where mistakes are welcome.
Exactly. Think about common scenarios, like ordering food at a restaurant, making small talk at a party, giving a presentation at work.
Yeah.
Role-playing allows you to practice those situations in a safe space.
Right.
So that when you encounter them in real life, you feel more prepared and confident.
It takes away that fear of the unknown
Right.
and allows you to experiment with different phrases and responses without the pressure of, a real-life interaction.
And you can even get creative with it.
Okay.
Imagine scenarios that you might encounter while traveling. Or, role play a job interview for a position you're interested in. The possibilities are endless.
That's a fantastic point. It's all about making it relevant to your own goals and interests.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on to the final two tips,
Okay.
I want to circle back to something that came up earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of combining different techniques for maximum impact.
Yes, that's crucial. These tips aren't meant to be followed in isolation.
Right.
They work best when they're integrated into a personalized learning routine that suits your individual needs and preferences.
So, for example, you could start your day by listening to an English podcast during your commute. Then practice shadowing a short scene from your favorite TV show during your lunch break. And later in the day, you can join an online conversation group.
Right.
Or use a language learning app to reinforce vocabulary and grammar while waiting for an appointment. Or winding down before bed.
Exactly.
The key is to find a combination that keeps you engaged and motivated, turning those everyday moments into opportunities for learning and growth.
Right. It's about weaving English into the fabric of your life, making it a natural and enjoyable part of your daily routine. And this leads us beautifully into our next tip, which is all about setting realistic goals.
Okay.
It's about shifting our focus from, these vague aspirations
Right.
to concrete, achievable targets that keep us moving forward.
So instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English,
Right.
which can feel so overwhelming,
Yeah.
you might set smaller goals, like learning 10 new words each week
Exactly.
or having a 5-minute conversation with a native speaker.
Right, by breaking down those larger goals. Yeah.
Into smaller, more manageable steps.
Mm-hmm.
You create this sense of accomplishment and maintain that momentum.
Right.
Each small victory fuels your motivation and keeps you moving forward.
And don't forget to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Each step forward, no matter how small, deserves recognition and can help you stay positive and motivated.
It reinforces those positive feelings toward learning
Hmm.
and reminds us that, we are capable of achieving those goals.
Right.
It's all about creating that positive feedback loop that keeps us engaged and excited about our language learning journey.
This brings us to our final tip,
Okay.
which might be the most important of all.
Ooh.
Be patient and stay positive.
Yes,
Learning a new language is a marathon, not a sprint.
it is.
And it's crucial to approach it with the right mindset.
So easy to get discouraged when, we compare ourselves to others or we focus on our mistakes.
Right.
But, remember, everyone learns at their own pace.
Uh-huh.
There's no such thing as a perfect language learner.
It's all about embracing the process, enjoying the ride, and celebrating every milestone along the way.
And remember, mistakes are not failures.
Right.
They're opportunities for growth.
Exactly.
Each time you stumble, you're learning something new and getting closer to fluency.
Mm-hmm. It's all part of the journey.
Isn't
And
it?
what I love about this tip is it really emphasizes the importance of mindset.
Right.
It's not just about the techniques that we use,
Yeah.
but it's also about the attitude that we bring to the learning process.
It's about believing in our ability to learn and grow even when things get tough,
Mm-hmm.
and remembering that the journey of learning English is full of rewards.
It's about, opening yourself up to new connections, new
Mhm.
information, new perspectives,
Mhm.
new ways of expressing yourself.
I love it.
It's really about expanding your horizons and embracing the beauty of human communication.
That's beautifully said.
Mm.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this episode.
We-
10 powerful tips for leveling up your English listening and speaking skills.
And we've explored how to combine these tips into a personalized learning routine that fits your individual needs and preferences, turning those everyday moments into opportunities
Yeah.
for growth and discovery.
But before we wrap up part 2, I want to leave you with a thought to ponder.
Okay.
Of all the tips we've discussed today,
Mm-hmm.
which one resonates most with you?
Yeah.
Which one are you most eager to try?
I'm curious to hear what people...
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into how to really make those English listening and speaking skills shine.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic journey so far exploring all these tips.
It really has, from immersing ourselves in English and practicing that active listening to, shadowing like pros and conquering those tricky pronunciations.
And even venturing into that exciting world of role-playing.
Oh, yeah.
Discovering the power of recording ourselves to really track that progress.
Right.
And all while emphasizing, the importance of setting realistic goals and really cultivating a positive mindset.
Absolutely. Now, in this final part, I want to circle back to a question we posed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Which tip resonated most with you?
Mm-hmm.
And which one are you most eager to put into practice?
Yeah, because I think the beauty of these tips is that, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Each learner can pick and choose the techniques that best suit their learning style, their interests,
Right.
their goals.
So if you're someone who thrives on interactive learning, maybe those language learning apps are calling your name.
Exactly. Or maybe you're a social butterfly who's ready to dive headfirst into those conversation groups.
Right.
Both online and in person.
And if you're drawn to the idea of mimicking,
Mm-hmm.
those captivating movie scenes, maybe shadowing is your secret weapon.
Right.
It's all about finding, what sparks joy in your learning journey,
Yeah.
because that's what will keep you motivated and engaged.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about putting these tips into action, because knowledge without action is like a car without fuel.
It's not going to get you very far.
Yeah, it's not going to get you very far. I encourage you to pick 1 or 2 tips from each category:
Okay.
immersion, active practice, and tools,
Mm-hmm.
and create a personalized learning routine.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate.
Right.
Even dedicating 15 minutes each day to watching a short English video with subtitles followed by, 10 minutes of shadowing
Yeah.
can make a world of difference over time.
It's all about those small, consistent efforts that add up.
Exactly.
Like little by little, a little becomes a lot.
That's right.
And as you start implementing these techniques, remember those last two tips. Be patient and stay positive.
Yes, learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. You know,
It is.
there will be moments of frustration, there will be moments of doubt,
Yeah.
but don't give up.
Yeah.
Embrace those challenges as opportunities for growth.
It's so important to remember you're not alone on this journey.
Right.
Millions of people around the world are learning English,
Hmm.
and they all face challenges along the way.
Yeah.
Yes, but they also experience those incredible moments of breakthrough and accomplishment.
Absolutely celebrate every milestone, no matter how small. And remember that progress is a journey, not a destination.
Well said.
As you continue on this path, you'll discover a world of possibilities opening up to you.
You'll be able to connect with people from diverse cultures, access a wealth of information and entertainment,
Right.
and really express yourself with confidence and fluency.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
What small change can you make in your daily life today to increase your exposure to English?
Could it be switching your phone's language settings to English? Listening to an English podcast during your commute?
Yeah.
Or simply, engaging in a short conversation with a language partner?
Remember, every little step counts. Take action, stay curious, and embrace the joy of learning.
Until next time, happy practicing.
See ya.